Atsalane Mamabolo, South Africa's most successful soccer writer.
You Pirates fans were looking for Rulani to come. You guys are unrealistic. Rulani Mukwena, Pirates.
3 times winner of Premiership Soccer Writer of the Year.
Okay, good morning and welcome to Inside SA Soccer. It's a beautiful day here in Joburg, and the season is, we are in off-season, but there's the playoffs going on. And just to look back at the season, I mean, I'm the 2024-2025 Betway Premiership season. For me, it was a very strange season. We when it started, for one, we didn't know who the sponsor was. There was this uncertainty. Are DSTV going to continue? And the PSL incredibly just kept quiet. There was nothing coming in. Leaks happened, and then we got to find out that, DSTV are not coming. We didn't know who was going to be the sponsor. Speculation as usual. It came out, it was Betway. The PSL announced it. The chairman called a big conference, and we knew it was Betway. But because of that, the season started not in August as we are used to. It started in September, and we didn't know what the amount was going to be. Too often the PSL will tell you, this is the new guy, this is what they're going to do. The trophy, we only got to see the trophy very late, a very ugly trophy, I must say. I still think it's not a beautiful trophy. But to help us reflect on the season, I've called in a good friend of the show, one of the top soccer journalists in the country, Tshepang Mailwane. He writes for Soccer Laduma. Tshepang, thank you so much for making time to talk to us. Welcome into our new studio. You've never been to our studio. We've always spoken to you over the phone, but this is where the magic happens. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, listen, as I say, a very strange season we've had. We know Mamelodi Sundowns won the championship. A season that ended with 15 clubs because of Royal AM. When you look back, you've covered football for many years. Have we ever had a season as crazy as this one that we've just finished?
Yeah, I've been around for a while, and I think this has to be the craziest one that we've had. And like you mentioned, we came into the season not fully sure as to who the sponsor is going to be, because there was a time where it was announced that clubs had to recall their jerseys to remove the sleeve of DSTV, and then we had the situation where the league only started in September, where in August it was just the MTN 8, and even at the launch, we were not sure how much the prize money is going to be. I remember asking that question, and we were told that it would be announced at a later stage. We had to wait the entire season to see the trophy of the Betway Premiership. And it's strange because I think I would think a sponsor would want us to see the trophy early on in the season to kind of give it that hype, and to know about the prize money, but that wasn't the case. And then there were just so many other issues. I mean, fixtures were a big problem throughout the campaign, not just only because of the Champions League, but in some cases weather. I remember that Golden Arrows and Orlando Pirates game, and there was the issue of the Super Sport and Golden Arrows game with load shedding at the stadium, and the game had to be played 45 minutes. Which for me was crazy. And then there was the issue of Royal AM. And that for me was very disappointing, because it's a club that was bought from Bloemfontein Celtic. And you know the history of Bloemfontein Celtic in the league, but just a few years later you get a club in a situation as it was in. And then you get the situation where it was not communicated properly that Royal AM have been expelled from the league. We just see, you just go on the PSL website one morning, and then you see that it's just 0-0-0-0 at the bottom, and it's not fully communicated as to they're finally gone. What happens to them going forward? Do they have an opportunity to come back? What happens with relegation, playoff, all of that? It's things that I guess we just had to figure out, I guess. So I thought it was rather disappointing that there was no proper official announcement on that.
I mean, I'm sitting now, even now, we have the playoffs, so we know that there will be 16 teams in the Betway Premiership next season because of these playoffs that are going on. But does it mean Royal AM have been relegated? Have we heard actually what's going to happen in terms of the teams earning their spot in the, what do we call it? The Motsepe Championship.
Foundation,
Motsepe Foundation Championship. how many teams are we going to have there? It's because often when a team like Royal AM are out of the league, there's 15, you'd think they go down, but clearly they are probably not going to go down, they're out of it. What then happens there?
So, from my understanding, is that there would be 3 teams promoted from the ABC Motsepe League. But you see, these are some of the things that could have been communicated to avoid any sort of speculation, because one says this, the other says that, and then it's a case of waiting to see what actually happens. And we could have, or they could have minused all of this from the very beginning by announcing what's going to happen. So from my understanding is that there will be 3 teams from the ABC Motsepe League that are promoted, and Royal AM as a club is basically ceases to exist. And I guess if someone one day wants to come back, they'd have to maybe buy a status and call it Royal AM again.
It's one of the things that I think I don't like, this whole buying of status thing. I mean, we are sitting here with this whole rumor about SuperSport might be sold, Bloemfontein Celtic might come back. I wish we had that situation. We, as South African football, over the years, we've copied so much of what they do in Europe, in England in particular. I mean, I sometimes laugh at, if you remember, when the logo of the new PSL back in 1996, Trevor Phillips came from England and essentially took the Betway, the English Premiership logo, and just moved it a little bit. The lion looked different. It's like a lion standing on its front paws or back paws, if that can happen. I don't know. I've never seen lions. But that's the thing. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, why don't we then take the best practices from there? And the best practice in England is, if somebody, the club can be owned by anybody, but you are the Qatari, you want to buy Manchester City, it remains Manchester City, the name doesn't change, the club does not move from there, it changes ownership. But here at home, it's the dynamic is very different, because as we've seen, Marumo Gallants have moved from all over. You just don't know where they are from. In fact, Marumo Gallants is a better example because they don't have that history here. We've had a case of Bloemfontein Celtic, a club that was formed there. So I think I'm just hoping we find a way to work around that. I understand. I mean, the chairman once explained that when they were selling Celtic, that Max, who bought that club, Max Chabalala, came to them and said, listen, financially I can't continue. And it made sense. The chairman said, there's livelihoods here. There's players who work for this club. If we say, no, Celtic must stay, what happens to these people? The owner says, I can't afford it. A person comes from KZN and says, I have money, and this is a way to save jobs, to keep livelihoods, families still getting fed. So I'm going to allow that to happen. And I understand that. But you sit and say, I wish there was another way to say, listen, yes, we know you're buying, but it remains Celtic. But the Mam Kizu says, I'm a KZN businesswoman, I'm not going to move to. So it is a challenge for the league, and in time, hopefully, we will find a way. But I think, as we say, the South African situation is very unique from England. You can't do that. So, yeah, that's fine. Now, moving into the season, moving into the football itself, we've had Mamelodi Sundowns win the league yet again. Were you surprised what happened at Sundowns? I remember when the league started, just about everybody was on Mangoba Mngiti's case. The change from Rulani to Mangoba was also a strange one, but it happened. What have you made of Sundowns? Them winning the league yet again, the drama that they had.
Yeah, look, coming into the season, I had a feeling that they'd win the league again, but this time I didn't think that it would be by a big margin. And I guess that was based on the fact that at the time, the head coach was Coach Mangoba, and even he in one of the press conferences had mentioned that he likes coming from behind in title races. And it was also based, I think you and I had a conversation early on in the season, it was also based on how Orlando Pirates had started. I think I had a look at how Jose Rivero was coming into his third season, and I felt that, he's been able to get to know Orlando Pirates. They've bolstered the squad quite well with new players, and in a third season you'd have a better opportunity to challenge Sundowns based on what you learned in the previous 2 seasons. So I thought that Pirates would challenge Sundowns and it would really be like a neck and neck where it goes all the way down to the wire. But it wasn't the case. And I think, look, a lot of people might not agree, but I admire what Sundowns did when they fired Mangoba and brought in Coach Miguel. And I say that because it's not always easy to make a decision when things are, I would say, going well, when you're at the top. But when you can see as management that maybe we might struggle, let's make the decision now rather than wait to see what happens. And it turns out to be a good decision because they've won the league by quite a big gap. So I think it was a brave decision and it was a good one at the end. Yes, I'm sure Mangoba would have wanted to continue with the team after starting fairly well, but they did mention that they were not entirely happy with the way Sundowns were playing under him because it was a bit different to the way Rulani played. And I think Sundowns want a certain way and they want to win in a certain way, and that's what they were not getting that under Coach Mangoba. So Cardoso came in, and I admire the decision that they took. And he came in. Fortunately, he's at a club where there's a system, and usually when you come in, you're not gonna struggle maybe to settle in because there's a system, and you're basically just carrying on. You can implement a few things as the season goes on. So, yeah, I think he's fortunate that he's come into a club where things, I would say, are run fairly well.
Do you? I mean, you've just mentioned that. I mean, you feel Sundowns made the right decision. They were brave, bold to do that. They, as you said, we were at that press conference and they spoke about they felt Mangoba was not playing the Sundowns way. Has Cardoso played the Sundowns way in your assessment of how Sundowns played after he came in?
I think so. I've had a chance to watch quite a lot of the Sundowns games, and I think Sundowns are not that they were not a possession-based team under Mangoba, but they want to keep the ball in a certain way. Whereas Mangoba did mention that I think he's keeping of the ball, make sure that Sundowns get forward quicker. So it would be like a doom fast, and then you're in the opposition box, and then you're gonna try and score goals. Whereas with Cardoso and even under Rulani, it's a bit more patient. You see Debza holding the ball, passing it around with Allende in midfield, and even at the back with Ronwen, Grant, and recently Musa Lubusa playing as a left-sided centre-back. They build up, and it takes a bit longer to get forward, or they try and find the right moments to, break down the opposition defense. So I think it's the way that Sundowns want to play. They want to see their team playing. So under Mangoba, it was not, I guess, the way that they wanted. I remember there was a game they played. I don't know if it was Polokwane City, but Kutlwano Letlaku scored that day, and it was a typical Mangoba Mniti goal because of how quick Sundowns got forward. And he enjoys that type of football. But I think management want a situation where Sundowns build up and they hold it a bit and try and find the right moments to break down the opposition. So I think they've played that way under Miguel Cardoso, and I think he has an opportunity to get better at it because now he'll have a preseason. He didn't have a preseason when he joined the team, so now he has an opportunity to kind of build it in the way that he wants.
Yeah, they won the league, and you spoke about Pirates challenging, and one of the things that Coach Jose Rivero said, which I sort of agree with him, was that because of the postponements of Pirates matches, Pirates had their matches postponed when they were going to play in the continental competition, and because of the Sundowns didn't. The reasons for that are known to all those two clubs. I think what I hear is Pirates asked for postponement; it were given. Sundowns didn't ask. They didn't want. They apparently wanted, but they felt, oh no, we will not get it. They didn't ask. That's what I hear. Whether it's true or not, I'm not sure. But Jose Rivero felt, and somehow you think it's true, that had we played the same number of matches all the way, like you looked at the other leagues. Every time I looked at the leagues in North Africa, where just about everybody had teams in the continent. They all played at the same number. I don't know how they did it, but there was always the same number of matches. And Jose Rivero said when they were playing Sundowns in that crucial match, not the first one, the second one, he was like, had we been playing the same, you looked at the log and it was skewed because Sundowns looked like they're running away with it, but because they had played more matches. it's Pirates doing. Perhaps they asked for postponement. But do you think if we had a season where this week it's match day 1, match day 2, and everybody is playing, do you think the competition would have been much closer? Do you think Pirates would have properly challenged Sundowns?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Because, I mean, I've never played football professionally, but I think something happens mentally when you've got games in hand, especially when it's a lot. In the case of Pirates, I think at some point they were 18 points behind. Yeah. And they had about 5 games in hand, if I'm not mistaken. So that really plays on your mind because Sundowns are winning. Sundowns keep on winning whenever they play, and you are under pressure to keep on winning. So I think Pirates were under a lot of pressure, and at times you just can't really handle that type of pressure in because you're dealing with the Champions League that you also want to win at the time because they're still competing in the Champions League. And then you also want to try and win here. And unfortunately for them, they also found themselves in a situation where there were injuries. Oli Sanda was out, Thabiso Sesane. That combination of Oli Sanda and Thabiso Sesane in central defense beginning of the season was an incredible partnership. Then they lost a few others, and then obviously the youngsters now had to come in and try and help the team. And I think they did very well in terms of trying to get the team to challenge for the title. But I just felt that there was something missing, and they were not able to sort of challenge Sundowns because Sundowns have a team that you take out Mukwena, you bring in Obas. They're still going to compete.
It doesn't look like you've made a change.
You take out Grant, you bring in someone else at the back, and you're going to get the job done. You take out Mudau, bring in Morena, So they have kind of, I'd say, like for like quality. I'm not saying it's not like that at Orlando Pirates, but some of the younger boys at times have to get used to that, understand the type of pressure that they're dealing with, and that takes time. So I think that really let them down. If it was game 1, match day 1, 2, 3, 4 together, maybe it would have been a tighter league race. I still feel Sundowns would have won it, but I think it would have been tighter.
Much tighter. Now, I mean, I just want to throw it forward a little before we reflect again on the season. Pirates showed that they can close the gap a little because it wasn't 27 points or 23 points like the previous one. They've closed it. The challenge now is going into the next season. There's this belief Pirates can challenge, but they've got a new coach. They are going to almost start from scratch because too often a new coach comes in, continuity, it's very rare that he's going to continue. What do Pirates do to make sure that they close the gap even more or even hopefully challenge and win it?
Well, I think first their target should be 70 points. It's clear in this league that if you want to try and win the league, you need to set a target of trying to get to 70 points, which is a tough ask. Sundowns are the only team, if I'm not mistaken, that have done that. Actually, they're the only team that have done that. So if you can get to 70 points, then you give yourself an opportunity to do that. But I also feel like they need to go into the market and add a few more players. Pirates. Because, there are, team has left, Paseka Marco has left, Mailwane has left. These are players that were not necessarily in the starting lineup, but you want to bring in players that can, 1, challenge for a spot in the starting lineup, and 2, give you the depth that you need to go all throughout the season. Because look at how the team was affected when Ndai and Sesane went out. They had to now bring in Mbegezeli Mbogazi, who did well, but you had to dig into your development to try and challenge Mamelodi Sundowns, and you're going to come off second best against a Sundowns team that can go to South America and sign a player that they want. So I think they need to get it right in the market. And like you say, bring in a coach who's not going to change too much. I think one of the reasons Liverpool was so successful is that Arne Slot came in and did not try and do too many things too quickly. He had the foundation of Jurgen Klopp there. And I think Liverpool, in a way, still played the same way. Your Mo Salah will still attack you. Luis Diaz will still attack you. And in the midfield, your McAllisters, Szoboszlai, they control the midfield. So someone who's going to come in and not make too many changes, because this Pirates team is good. It's capable of challenging. But if you want to change absolutely everything, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you're telling fans that you're building, and you're telling fans that are so used to winning trophies that you're building. I don't think they're going to have the patience.
Yeah. Now, Pirates did well, went into the Champions League semi-final. That was like a good thing. They even won the MTN. They couldn't win the Nedbank Cup. The Nedbank Cup was won by Kaiser Chiefs. Did Kaiser Chiefs have a good season?
No, not at all. It was a horrible season for Kaiser Chiefs. And yes, you've got a trophy in the cabinet, but it shouldn't make you forget about the problems that you have. In their case, they still have serious problems because you look at their numbers, the season that they have, this goes down as one of the worst seasons that they've had in the PSL era.
League, yes.
Yeah, in the league. So which tells you that over a long period of time, their problems are many because the Nedbank Cup, not to downplay it, but it was 5-6 matches, then you win the cup. So defensively, they've been poor this season. And you'd think that after going into the market to bring in quite a number of defenders, they would have improved from the previous season, but it wasn't the case. But I think one of their biggest problems is the goalkeeping department. They really need to find a goalkeeper who can finally close that gap at the back, because they had Kune for a long time and he was outstanding as a number one goalkeeper. But now you get Brandon Peterson, who's not always convincing, Vuma, who's not always convincing, and then Ntwari, who was meant to be that, came in and couldn't hold on to that number one jersey. So that is a concern. Not only that, the striking department as well. When was the last time Kaiser Chiefs really had a striker that was banging in goals? I mean,
I thought Ranga was going to do that. He came in highly recommended start at Baruno Gallants.
I've never really been without any disrespect, a Ranga fan. He had his best season. I think he scored 18 that season for Gallants when they reached the semi-finals. But outside of that, I haven't really seen Ranga as someone who can get into a big team and really lead the attack and be the man that you rely on for goals. So it's unlike when you had a Knowledge Masona or had a Collins and Besuma, or I guess even to some point Bernard Parker. So they really need someone who can come in and score goals. And I think maybe the sad thing is that in South African football, you don't have too many of those, because it's not like you can go to Sundowns and say, hey, give me Peter Shalulile, Sundowns, or Tshepang Mawasa, that Pirates, and say, give it, your rivals are not likely to give you that type of player. So I think if they can find someone, even if it's outside of the country, who can help them. Fiston Maela has been mentioned, but he might just be too expensive for them. So they really need to go out there and do a proper scouting job.
I mean, you mentioned the goalkeeper. It's very strange that we say Chiefs struggle with a goalkeeper, because from when I was a kid, the one thing that Kaiser Chiefs excelled in was goalkeepers. There was Peter Ballack, there was Isaac Chirwa, there was Banks Claude even before that. And then later on, you had your William Shongwes coming in, and your Brian's come after. I mean, they had Wade du Plessis. I can mention, it's just Kaiser Chiefs always produced great goalkeepers. What did they do wrong now? Because after Kune, there's just nothing that's come through.
And it's funny, just to add on to what you're saying, even their backup goalkeepers. I mean, when under Ted, Brian and Fernandez were battling for number one, and then Kune came in, he was with Baron, Emil Baron, the late Arthur Bartman.
Yes.
When he came in, he was always ready to do the job. So I can't really put my finger as to why they've struggled. And in their development, they haven't brought up anyone. I mean, Vuma has been there for long, but he hasn't done anything for yes, he's had glimpses of brilliance here and there, shown promise here and there, but it's not enough, because you need to, at some point, move over to the next level. So they haven't really done well in producing a goalkeeper that can come up and really be their number one. And maybe that's one thing they really need to look into, to start developing their own that can do, and just also do better in the market. I mean, it's not like they haven't tried. I know. I mean, they'll tell you we brought in Daniel Akpe, we brought in Ntwari recently.
Yeah.
But I really feel that they really need to do better and really find someone who's commanding, someone who can get in there and be a leader, because I don't see too many leaders in that Kaiser Chiefs dressing room. Nwabali, I think, is an option. He's someone I look at and feel, maybe he could have a presence in the dressing room and maybe he can use his international experience to help them. But that doesn't always help because Daniel Akbey was an international also at some point, but didn't last too long at Kaiser Chiefs. So I think the scouting has to be better, and I think the biggest thing, just try and develop within and make it a long-term project where you say, guys, we need to at least have 2 or 3 goalkeepers coming up in the next 5 years, and making sure that they can be first-team starters and be long-term first-team starters.
Yeah. I mean, they brought in, what's his name? Nazruddin Nabi, and there was this hoo-ha about him. He comes from Yanga. He'd done well there. He had done very well. Where was he? Morocco. I mean, the
ASFAR.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great season at ASFAR because he finished second to a team that went unbeaten all season. So he came in highly recommended. Has he done well at Chiefs?
I don't think so. I don't think he had a good season. And at times when he was asked about it, he was defensive. I understand he's the coach, but I don't believe in coaches saying, I am building, even when you're a year into it or close to a year into it. Because we're in April when they played the derby and he's talking about a building process. Yes, there is a building process, but by April, you should start seeing some sort of results from the building. I mean, for example, look at Jose when he was at Pirates, his first season. He won the MTN 8 as a start. He finished second. They won the Nedbank Cup. You're building from something that's positive. But right now, it feels like Kaiser Chiefs are going to be starting from zero again, which is a problem, because you want the coach to come in and build and say, okay, we finished second, third, or fourth. There is hope for the next season. Because winning a cup, for me, does not really mean anything. You could win a cup and get relegated the next season. You could win a cup and get relegated the same season. We saw it with Wigan in the English Premier League, where they won the FA Cup but still got relegated. So it doesn't really tell us too much of a story. So I don't think he did well. And the tough part for him is that going into the second season, he might have to start well, because I don't think they'll accept a slow start, because a slow start means that you could have another poor season. So he'll probably be under pressure to ensure that Kaiser Chiefs start well.
And they also have continental commitments next season, which often takes away from what you're doing domestically. One of the things, I mean, there was that whole story that he might be fired, but it looks like he's going to stay. I am this guy who finds it very strange here in South Africa that when a coach is black, Sundowns did the same with Mangoba. I always feel that our clubs, when a coach is a black South African, there's no patience. Very quickly, they get rid of a guy. Nabi comes in, like you say, he's had a cack season because he, number 10 or 9? Chiefs finished outside the top 8.
Number 9.
The least points they've had in this 16 team thing. Okay, they can claim that it was 15 teams because of Royal AM. But they seems to be patient. Let's give him a chance. Why is it that there's this treatment that seems, I don't know if Nabi is white or whatever, but he's foreign. Why do our clubs do that? Why do you think they do that?
Yeah, could be disrespect to the black coaches. I mean, go back to Arthur Zwane. I think he finished 5th in the league, and there was signs that, maybe the team could get better. It wasn't like a disastrous season, and he was let go in the first year of his 3-year contract. And maybe if you had kept him for another season to see how things go, who knows where Kaiser Chiefs could have been now, because each season they've had to basically start again. And even Coach Dan Malesela has said it, if your surname doesn't have a Vich at the end or, anything like that, you're not going to be as respected. And it's something that we somehow need to change in our local football. And I don't know how. Yeah. I think sometimes club chairmen really need to look at the jobs that our local coaches do. I mean, look at Thabo September, for example. He mentioned in an interview that they were talking of demoting him and making him an assistant, when I felt he did fairly well in his first full season as a head coach. They almost finished in the top 8. as Chippa United. So why not give him another opportunity to prove himself? Yes, you brought in another black coach, but I felt that Thabo September had done enough for you. One, you weren't struggling like fighting relegation or worrying about all of those things. So give him an opportunity. So we really need to find a way to change this in our local football and not just, give people patience simply because of the color of their skin.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it works because let's look at another club, Stellenbosch FC, who had another fantastic season, top 3, they were in the semis of a few competitions, MTN8, I remember. Steve Barker has been given so much time at that club, and he's just growing and growing with them because Stelli's owners clearly are very patient. This is a man they believe. He's a guy. We're supporting him. They keep losing top players, but he keeps churning new ones out because it seems, I mean, I've watched them. You look at their DDC team has been continuously going to the next gen because there's proper structures there. And the guy is being supported and he'll produce the results. So when you look at Steve Barker, I mean, this past season, were you impressed? I mean, 3rd position again, but he's done well.
Yeah, no, for me, yes, Sundowns won the league, but I think Stellenbosch, for me, I'd say are the team of the season. And I say this because they keep losing players. They lost their captain, Dino van Rooyen, to Orlando Pirates. Ikram Reyners joined Mamelodi Sundowns, and yet they keep showing that they can do well. And it's something we've spoken about, is that they have a system there. They've got structure. And the structure allows them to lose players but still do well. You can either go and get free agents, which is what they've done, and they get good free agents, or they sign well. I mean, they signed Lisibangu from Sundowns. He wasn't the free agent, from what I understand. But their scouting is also so good. I think Lisibangu was scouted for quite some time before they signed him. I forgot how long exactly, but he was scouted for quite some time, which tells you that there's a team that knows that they're going to lose a player. For example, they know that they're going to lose Basadine at some point at left back, and they've probably already made plans or started looking a long time ago who's his replacement going to be. There's a structure. I once did an interview with Morgan Gold, and he also just spoke about the order there at the team and the way they work. I remember he told me about some I forgot what he called it, an eye exercise that they have there at the University of Stellenbosch, and it kind of trains players on how to deal with certain situations on their pitch, basically using your eye and all of that. So maybe it's some of these little things that they do behind the scenes that allows them to be so successful. I mean, they competed and reached the semifinals of the CAF Confed Cup, and they're still able to finish 3rd in the league. Tells you a lot about them as a team. But I think it's all down to, one, the patience that they had in Coach Steve Barker, but the system that they've built. I think in any organization, if you have a system in place, whoever comes or goes, I think you'll still be successful because everyone has to stick to how we do things.
Now, I mean, the new season, whenever a new season starts, we all look at the newcomers and we say, oh, these ones are going to get relegated. We all thought, I didn't think so because they are from home and I wanted them to stay. But logic was like, this club is going to get relegated. They won a cup. They did not get relegated. What happened there? Yes, they fired a coach, changed one. But what did Magezi do right this season?
We were at that final. What they did right, I feel like maybe one thing that clubs have often done when they get promoted is quickly try and sign sort of the big name players who are maybe free agents. And I don't think that they rushed to do that. Yes, they brought in, I think, Sahota was there, Gift Motupa was there, but I think a lot of the other guys that they brought in had come from the Motsepe Foundation Championship, and maybe these are players that Coach Clinton Larson had seen and thought that, I could add them to my squad. And I think they did very well. They started fairly slow, but leading up to that final against Mamelodi Sundowns, they had, gotten quite a few good results, and I think that helped them. Then after that cup final victory, there was that slump. And Owen Dagama came in, and maybe having someone like Owen was good for them, because Owen, I don't think, is going to play football to try and be pretty. He's going to do what's necessary to get a result. And sometimes playing against teams that are not necessarily playing beautiful football can be difficult, because they're just playing to either get a draw or a win, which means that they're going to do everything possible to get this. So they'll defend for their lives. They'll hoof it forward if necessary. They'll play direct football, which is not always easy to deal with, because you're getting a team that just quick, cross it into the box. Then you've got maybe a big guy up front to get the goals. And they play with crosses, like your Chirambadares, always whipping in those crosses. So I also think that they did not set too high of a target. You know, sometimes teams come in and say, we want to finish in the top 8. I've heard chairmen saying, we need to finish in the top 3 or whatever the case may be. But when I interviewed the chairman, he was like, we just want to survive. We need to just make sure that we survive. And they were very humble in their approach throughout the season. And I'm impressed with what they did.
Yeah, and I mean, they went to Seshego. They'd been playing at Polokwane, Pitamukaba, the old one, sharing it with Polokwane City. But when they moved to Seshego, it just seemed like to unleash them, because they lost one match and then thereafter did not lose a single match. It's a very compact pitch. I've been there. It's very hard. I heard Mangoba complained when he went there. A few coaches said that Jose Rivero hated going to those stadiums, Pitamukaba. Do you think that also worked in their favor?
I think so. I mean, we played there in high school at Seshego Stadium, and like you say, very, very compact pitch. And if you don't know how to play on those types of pitches as an opponent, Magezi will take advantage of that. And I think that's what they did. And they've got the type of players who can do that, especially because they like whipping balls into the crosses, and they've got these big players like Mukoni there who can just, head the ball. So I think that really helped them, and maybe they got a feeling of being at home. Sometimes, you have that thing, we are playing at home. It's our people here, and you want to make sure that you don't disappoint them. And they didn't want, I guess, that thing of being relegated in the first season. It happened, the previous season with Cape Town Spurs. So the last thing you want is to be part of that list. So I think you're right. Them going to show, I think, played a role in them surviving.
Now, the PSL has yet to announce when the end of season awards are happening, because Sundowns are away. Everybody has their own favorite. When you look at the season, who were your standout players? I mean, if they were to say, come and judge the PSL Football of the Year, who stood out for you?
My number one would be Ikram Reyners. I know a lot of people talk about Lucas Ribeiro Costa, but I was really impressed with what Reyners did in his first season at Sundowns. He got in there, you get 14 goals, I think double digits also in terms of assists. And what I liked about him is that even when he had that goal drought, he was still helping the team with assists here and there. And the fact that it was his first season at Sundowns, after that disappointment at SuperSport, didn't really have the greatest of times there. So he came back to Gauteng, and he made such a huge impact. I think he's one of the underrated and unsung heroes in that Sundowns team. And I feel because of the fact that he was just in his first season in a team and able to break in and be their main sort of striker, that impressed me. And Lucas Ribeiro is my number 2. For a long time, he was my number 1, but something changed, and I put Reyners at the top. But he had a fantastic season, Ribeiro. Because in the absence of Tembazwane, who was injured for a long time, he was there as their number 10, as their go-to guy in terms of assists, in terms of goals. And he scored some cracking goals, some beautiful goals. I mean, the one he scored against Pirates, the one he scored against Kaiser Chiefs at Lucas Muripe Stadium. I feel that he made such a huge impact at Sundowns. But there are a few others who I feel did well. I think Makaula at Pirates did well in midfield. Dion Otto was an ever-present at left-back for Orlando Pirates. Rele as well had a good season. Even Tebza still at Sundowns, consistent in the middle of the park. Keletso Makhalwa at Skokune, Devon Titus at Stellenbosch, I think, and even Basadine, who won the Player of the Season at Stellenbosch. So I think those are some of the people who stood out for me. But for Player of the Season, I feel that Ikram, I would give it to Ikram.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible what he did, because too often we've seen players from Cape Town come to Gauteng, they struggle. When he failed at SuperSport, I think a lot of people, then they moved to Sundowns, everybody says, what is he going to do? But as you say, he got there and he just 14 goals in one season. It's not bad in South African football. And as you say, coming into a new club. The excitement that a lot of us had over the Pirates youngsters, you speak of Makaula, and I think it's that, football, we love the flashy. Everybody saw Relemo Fugem, but Makaula was just a beast there, and I think I agree with you. He should be somebody that people look up to. If they were to say PSL team of the year, I would definitely include him in my team. But the emergence of these youngsters at Pirates, Rele Mohau, there's been a few, Radio Pani, I don't know how old he is, but has it excited you? I mean, I know a lot of people looked at it, because in the past we haven't had young players coming through. There's always been, our coaches wait for you to get older. But what do you think these two have done in terms of showing the rest of the clubs and coaches to say, if you're good enough, your age should not matter?
Yeah, they've done a lot. I mean, Rile and Nkota, and it's not just the impact in the domestic game. Look at the performances in the Champions League, the goals that they were able to score against the big opposition,
clubs,
against Al Ahly, against Algerian clubs, against Pyramids. Unfortunate, obviously, to lose that one. But for me, I watch them and I'm like, these boys are playing without fear. These boys are just going out there and showing that, hey, man, if you give us an opportunity, we'll show you that we can do it. Obviously, you need the guidance of your Makaulas, your Dion Hotos there, but I just love the fact that they were able to go out and not worry and not restrict themselves, because sometimes you can restrict yourself because of the fear. And I think them doing well, starting with Rele, them doing well, allowed guys like Mbogazi to come in the middle of the season and do so well, because Mbogazi, even, I think he was in a tougher situation, because you are coming into a defense that has lost Nda, that has lost Sesane, and now you need to come in and be one of the key players in the back and make sure that Pirates are still competitive as a teenager. And he, I think, managed it so well. And I like how even Jose at times managed him. Because, for example, against Sundowns, I don't know if it's the one that they won 2-1. He had him in a 3-man backline. It's him, Koki, and CBC. And I think having those two senior guys next to you, it helps you. And he was able to perform so well. At times, maybe he would get caught out when it's two central defenders, but when it was the three against bigger opposition, he was able to stand out so well. And Yondrozi came in as well at right back, did well. Younger Madida towards the end of the season came in. And it just opens the door for others to come in next season. I mean, look at Simpiwe Selepe. Yes. He came in, first game, Soweto Derby. Yeah. Within a month, you were playing in the national team, international friendly. So what Pirates have done this season, I mean, it's not only Pirates, but what Pirates have done this season was incredible.
But it talks to the coach as well, isn't it? The coach needs to believe this, because almost every club has these youngsters, but not every coach believes that. I mean, as we're sitting here, we don't know who Pirates are going to hire, and the worry is exactly that. Is the new guy going to come in and allow for this to continue, or is he going to come in and say, no, I work this way? Talking of that, the PSL Awards, they always give Coach of the Year. Who for you has to win that award?
That's a tricky one. But I'll give it to Miguel Cardoso. A lot of people think he came in the middle of the season, but he came in after seven games.
Was it?
It was 7 games into the season. Okay. So he had basically 21.
Sundowns were number one already on the table.
He had 21 games. And you look at...
enough.
Yeah.
It's a third of the season, so...
And the reason I put him up there is also along the way the records that Sundowns were able to break, the amount of goals that they kept on scoring. And yes, people say it's easy to walk into Mamelodi Sundowns and they say any coach can win the league with. I disagree. Yes, there's a system that helps you, but I disagree in that any coach can walk into Mamelodi Sundowns and win it. You still have to get in there and win a dressing room. And this is a dressing room that has big name players. And once you get them playing for you, then you'll see the results on the pitch. And I think that he did that. I mean, you look at the amount of times they scored like 4 goals in a game. And how he was quickly able to adapt to local football. Yes, Jose, I think, comes close, because what I like about Jose is that every single season he improved Pirates in terms of points, in terms of the goals they scored, and I think even defensively they were much better than the previous seasons. And he gave these youngsters an opportunity, so that was good. And obviously Steve Barker, what he did at Stellenbosch. But look, I'd give it to Miguel for how he came in and just basically he made Sundowns better, in my opinion.
What kind of season do you think we are going to have? I know we don't know yet. The clubs, some are back in pre-season, some are not. But when you look ahead to the upcoming season, are we going to continue to see Sundowns dominating and then the usual suspects, Pirates chasing them, Stellies being there and thereabout? Or you think there might be a new team that pushes, Kaiser Chiefs, for example, or anybody?
Right now, it's difficult to see anyone really chasing Sundowns because you don't know who Pirates are going to hire and you don't know what he's going to come in and do to the team. Is he going to make them better or are they going to be worse than what they were? So Sundowns are fortunate that they're going into the season basically continuity. The coach started in December. Now he gets a preseason, and maybe because he gets a preseason, it will give him an opportunity to make the team even better than what they were. But if Pirates get a coach who can take them to a new level, like I gave the example of Arne Slot, what he did with Liverpool, if they can get a coach who can do that, then they can definitely give Mamelodi Sundowns a push. Chiefs, I think they will have a better season, but I don't see them competing for the title. But obviously, only time will tell. But I think they would be in the top 8. Yeah.
Okay. Tshepang, thank you so much. We appreciate your insights into SA football. And that was our review really of the season. You've heard from Tshepang. Do you agree? Do you think he's spot on some of the things he said? Thank you so much for joining us here on Inside SA Soccer, and let's meet again in the next show.